Greenlight Network presents Football Time.
Hey, and welcome to the Football Time Show. It's NFL Week 4, and we're here to get in on the actions. We got to find some picks in this one. I know I had a little bit more difficulty this week on these lines, so we'll see if we can find some picks. And with us, as always, to get into this week's action is our man, Achilles Rain.
What's up, buddy?
Hey. All right. We're going to go through our 50-on-5 mutuals first. We're going to get through all these games as we're going to preview them. We're going to find 5 mutual picks that we agree on for the week, and then we'll get into our overall best bets of the week. So you ready to get into our mutual picks this week?
I mean, about as ready as you can be, I guess.
Yeah, this should be an interesting way to come up with 5 here, because I struggled to come up with 5 standalone bets on my own. I did manage to get around 6, but I can't say I love any of these with a whole lot of confidence. Last week I had one with confidence in the Rams where I pretty much knew I was throwing my money somewhere. This week I don't know if I'm throwing my money anywhere. It might be very light.
Well, I mean, as you know, I sent you a text earlier on. I was looking at the games, looking at the lines, and there were a couple, like literally a couple that, I had a gut feeling about, and everything else was just kind of like up in the air. I kind of set it all in my maybe column, and I figured that talking to you, maybe it'll push me over the edge and be able to take some more.
Yeah, I think a little bit of it as well as we're getting into a little bit more division play here. So I think we're both a little bit more hesitant to take a favorite in division play, especially one, that's a little bit bigger. And then a couple of I guess it just so happened the non-division matchups are a little bit lopsided, and they tend to go to that higher spread sort of way. And you know how I feel about that. So I definitely back off, but we'll see if we can find 5 here. All right, let's kick it off with the Washington football team versus the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons are 1.5-point home dogs here. 47.5 points is the under. The first half sits at I pick them pretty much a half point for the Washington football team. And the over-under in the first half sits at 23.5. The only thing I delved deep into this and found out, both these teams are really bad.
Yeah.
I tried to convince myself and be like, I'm going to find arguments for why we should take the Falcons at home plus 1.5. And I couldn't find many reasons to do that. And then I was like, okay, Washington football team, let's find some reasons to take them as road favorites. And I could not find many reasons for that too. So this one really has me flummoxed. I will say I leaned a little bit more towards the Washington side of things in this game. I do think if the defense is going to get going, it's probably going to be more versus a low-level team like this who has a little bit trouble blocking, has an older quarterback back there who's been prone to getting sacked a lot. But, their defense has been so poor this year. It's hard to say, they're going to be right there on top. There's been a little bit of sniping in the press between defensive coordinators and people on the defensive line. I just really don't have a good feel of where this game's going to go and how it's even going to play out. Is it going to be a shootout kind of game where Washington tries to score a lot of points on Atlanta and Atlanta comes back on Washington? Or is it going to be a defensive battle with 2 pretty much really poor offenses, which is what we've seen all season long? So what is your feel on this game, if you have any?
I have a slight feel here, and I'm kind of on the opposite side of you. I'm leaning a little bit more towards Atlanta. Now, as you mentioned, when you look at both of these teams, as I was starting to actually look at stats, because this is normally the time of year that I actually start to, gamble. And I started looking at certain stats. Now, I kept it very simple for this week, but as I'm looking at, you're right, both of these teams are actually pretty bad. So when it came down to it, I really had to decide what's going to be the biggest factor. And for me, it's going to be health. Unfortunately, even though I believe that healthy, Washington is probably a better football team right now because of injuries, because of the expectations that we set on this team that they're not quite meeting both teams. I just think that Atlanta has a slight edge. And even when looking at the overall rankings, they're just slightly ahead. I know that it's early on. We're just entering week 4 now in the season, but I think that at this point, we're starting to at least get a feel for either these guys are real bottom dwellers or they're at least the best of the worst. And I think we're starting to get a feel for those teams right now. And for this particular matchup, I'm leaning a little more towards Atlanta.
Yeah, the money's coming in really, really heavy on Washington. Almost 80% of the cash is being placed on Washington. The tickets are about a 60-40 split here. So that really makes me hesitant to want to take Washington, along with the weirdness of them being favored on the road. I think if you were flipping this line and it was Washington that was given the 1.5, I'd be a little bit more aggressive on the Washington side of things, but I just don't like them coming in favored. You sort of look at the numbers overall here. Overall on Football Outsiders, the DVOA of the two teams, Atlanta's 32, which is the last. There are 32 teams in the league. They are ranked 32 by Football Outsiders. Washington, not that much better at 23. You really get into it here on the offensive and defensive side of things. Atlanta's offense is 32. Washington's is 29. Washington's defense is 20. Atlanta's 30. So, I mean, basically that's just telling me these are two bad teams matching up here. And I can't give you I feel like this game's going to go this way. This team's going to do this in this game because I don't even really know what either of these teams are about. Preseason, I figured Washington would be about defense. Nothing we've seen this year has said they're about defense. We know they aren't about offense, and Atlanta has not shown any offense or defense this year. So, I mean, I think this is probably just a pass sort of game unless you really have some sense of how this game's going to play out.
I don't think it makes sense to take any action on this particular matchup, seeing as how, even though neither of us really have a good feel for this, if you had to lean anywhere, you said you'd lean more towards Washington. And if I had to lean anywhere, I think I'd lean more towards, Atlanta. And just looking at these numbers, I mean, on offense, overall offense, Washington's 22nd, Atlanta 28. Overall defense, Washington's 31st, and Atlanta's at 19. So, I mean, just even looking at the basic stats, it seems like it's a recipe for an ugly game. So as far as neutrals are concerned, I think this is one that we just stay away from.
Yeah, the only thing I had that tipped a little bit in my favor is the sort of red zone comparison here. Atlanta in the red zone is 23rd, where Washington's defense is 4th in the red zone. Washington's offense is actually 3rd in the red zone overall. That doesn't mean they get there all that often. It just means when they get there, they are successful. But then Atlanta's defense is 32nd. So I figured both these teams probably move the ball pretty easy on each other between the 20s, and maybe that sort of slides to Washington's favor here because they have been a little bit better when they've gotten into scoring territory on offense and a little bit better on defense. But that's not really something you need to start basing your lines off of when two bad teams clash, how they do in the red zone.
Yeah, Clash of the Titans.
All right, so we'll move past the Washington football team and we'll move to the biggest line of the week. And they don't usually throw these out until about weeks 10, 11, 12. So the Texans have done something really special here. But the Houston Texans go to the Buffalo Bills. The spread is 17.5. The total is 47. First half line -10. Total in the first half is 24. I mean, I know who's going to win this game. I can tell you that. I know they will probably score a whole hell of a lot of points. There is a part of me that wants to sort of ride the Texans here at that 17.5. But this, You know, what gives me hesitancy is this Buffalo team isn't one of those teams you really want to play big spreads with. You know, they won by 35 points 2 weeks ago versus Miami. They won by 24 points last week. It's just, I'm assuming that's why this line is so big to begin with. But what are your feelings on the Houston Texans Buffalo Bills here?
I mean, I just think that we have a huge discrepancy when it comes to talent for both of these teams. And it's unfortunate, especially the way Houston started off the season. They look like they were going to be the big surprise of the year. Unfortunately, they're dealing with injuries and, you know, even some inside the locker room drama. But, you know, all that aside, realistically, Buffalo is just a much better team. And I know that they had a little bit of a slump early on to start the season, but it seems like they really picked it up since then, and they've really found their mojo. As good as I thought Houston was playing, when I look at the numbers, I mean, again, they're ranked in the lower half of the leagues, both on offense and defense. So this is not a game that I feel comfortable just because it's a huge spread. And I wouldn't be surprised if Buffalo covered here easily, but I just don't feel comfortable taking that big of a spread.
Yeah, that's what gives me concern about taking Houston is I just don't think their defense is probably good enough to at least keep themselves in this game, you know, long enough to cover this sort of 17.5 points. And then on the back end, where you get that cover is a backdoor type cover where, you know, Buffalo has already pulled its guys, which I'm assuming they probably will do in the third, you know, fourth quarter in this game. And then maybe you get some cheap touchdowns. But the way the Buffalo pass rush has been this year with Davis Mills in there, I just don't know if there's a way to get that back to or cover on that 17.5 point number. You know, the one thing I did look about on this a little bit is that 10 in the first half for the Buffalo Bills. That's really, really a lot of points in the first half. You know, you pretty much need a score, at least your first possession, to try to cover that. But, you know, I do think they could probably blow this game away. But, you know, that might be something we look at, but it's not something I'm in love with.
You know, I looked at that also, but then I go back to just the basic stats again. Buffalo is ranked number 4th overall in defense, while the Texans are 25th overall on offense. That sort of mix, especially with injuries and everything that's going on, to me, it just seems like a recipe for disaster. I could completely see where Buffalo scores an early touchdown here, and then, you know, Houston's trying to answer. They come back and they get a turnover, pick six, or a fumble, and just, you know, give a short field. So there's just too many bad scenarios for me to really feel comfortable with even halftime spread like that.
Yeah. All right. We'll move on to our next game. This one has me a little bit more intrigued here, but I don't know how many times I've done it in my lifetime, so it should be interesting. The Detroit Lions go to the Chicago Bears. The Bears are favored by 3 points here. The over-under sits at 42 points. The first half is -2.5 for the Bears, and the line sits at the total of 21 points in the first half for the Bears-Lions game. This one's really, really interesting here. I think at the start of the season, we probably would have penciled the Bears pretty easy here on a -3 sort of line. But you know, I've watched both these teams play, and I think this Lions team plays a little bit better than their talent is. They really do try hard. So I lean a little bit Detroit here. I will say a couple things concern me. You know, this Chicago defense is really good along the defensive line and in the linebackers. You can get at them mostly in the secondary. But the problem is Detroit is really not that type of team. They've really hurt team with the short passing game with DeAndre Swift and stuff coming out the backfield. I'm not sure they can really hurt the Bears in their weakness in the passing game here. So that gives me a little bit of concern taking the Lions here, getting 3 points. Also, taking Detroit on the road pretty much always concerns me and has concerned me pretty much my whole life. So even on a number where I think they will play better, I don't know if the talent is better. I think the talent's still better on the Chicago Bears. So it's really hard for me to gauge in this game. So what do you make of this game?
You know, this is one of the games that I actually had a gut feeling about. And it's based literally just off the eyeball test. when I was looking at the numbers basically just tell me that it's going to be a low scoring affair between a middle of the pack offense versus middle of the pack defense, and then a very bad offense versus a very bad defense. So when I was looking at this game, just I don't know. I have a feeling like Detroit has played a little bit tougher competition, and they've played them a little harder. When I look at Chicago, their offense is ranked 32nd. They're last in the NFL right now on a total offense. And I know a lot of that has to do because of last week where Justin Fields came in and basically got completely destroyed. So I didn't put too much, weight on that particular stat, but just watching the games, I feel like Detroit plays a little bit tougher, and they're getting 3 points. This is one of the games, like I said, I had a gut feeling about. I'm actually going to go with Detroit on this one.
Yeah, I do really like Detroit to the +3. The other thing, the Chicago Bears are being cagey with their quarterback situation here, whatever the hell that means. Nagy came out and said both quarterbacks participated limited in practice. So I don't know what totally that means. If Field starts, I'm much more confident in this Detroit line than if Andy Dalton starts. If Andy Dalton starts this game, it makes me really, really nervous. And the Bears are probably a better team. This is a game the Bears win. This is how the Bears end up 8-8, 9-8, and get that wild card spot in the playoffs. They don't beat any good teams, but they do beat the bad teams here. So, it's one I want the Lions, but it's one I want the Lions if Fields is starting. It's not necessarily one I want if Andy Dalton is starting this game.
Yeah, I mean, as a matter of fact, I'm just going to go ahead and pencil it in right now. I'm going to take the Lions with, the contingency that Justin Fields is playing. Otherwise, I'm probably not taking any action.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll mark the Lions down as our first mutual of the week since we both really felt it. And then if the Red Rocket comes in and punishes us, or just life for taking the Detroit Lions in a road game outdoors punishes us, we will know, and we understand the risk here. All right, next one up, really entertaining game here. Pretty important game to sort of see where these two teams really set here. The Carolina Panthers go to the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys are 4.5-point favorites in this one. 51.5 is the over-under total. The first half total is -3 for the Dallas Cowboys, and the total sits at 24.5 in this game. Really, really interested in this game to see how this breaks down. You have Carolina, who right now is pretty much rated across the board in pretty much everybody's category as the best defense in the NFL right now. They do lose Christian McCaffrey. The Cowboys coming off maybe their best played game in, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 years with the game they played versus the Eagles. The defense looked serviceable, I will say, and the offense seemed to find that balance that they have not had in the past, where they've been either too run heavy or too pass heavy. So interesting game here, but I will say I'm leaning a little bit towards Carolina getting that 4.5-point game. This one just sort of speaks of a last-second field goal game to me.
Yeah, when I was looking at this particular game, I kind of had an inkling that I was going to lean towards Carolina. And that was just based off the rankings I was looking at. Currently, as you mentioned, they're ranked number 1 in total defense. But that also is a little skewed. You have to also pay attention to the teams they've played. They really haven't played really potent offensive teams. So it's hard to take that number 1 ranking, very seriously. So then I look at the other side of the ball on offense, and they're ranked 10th on offense. Carolina is on total offense, and it looks pretty impressive. But again, then you mentioned the fact that they lose McCaffrey. So even though I was feeling kind of positive about Carolina, I look at the way this Cowboys team has been playing as of late. They have some playmakers on defense in that secondary. They have some good pass rushers. Their linebackers seem to be getting after the quarterback. They're making enough plays to keep their team in the game. And offensively, they're clicking on all cylinders. They're top 5 on offense in the league. So I see why they're favored. I do think this Carolina team is probably better than, we've given them credit so far, even though they've played pretty poor teams. But, the injuries are they hurt a little bit. Actually, they hurt a lot. So I'm not too sure. I was kind of hoping that you were going to sell me on this particular game, just because, like I said, when I was looking at it originally, I was leaning towards Carolina a little bit.
Yeah, that's about the best I could say. The injuries do concern me a little bit, and actually more so the J.C. Horn injury for the Carolina. He was really good rookie corner. He was playing really good football. Now they did make a trade for the Jaguars' first-round pick corner from 2 years ago. He probably will get some time here. Granted, the Jaguars traded him because he was not very good and was not playing for them. So, but maybe that was a situation thing. He finds his sort of legs here. But the J.C. Horn concerns me a little bit for Carolina's defense, more so than the Carolina offense and missing Christian McCaffrey. I know that sounds weird, but really this coaching staff has been without Christian McCaffrey pretty much all of last season. And, now they will be without him this season. So I think they know how to work around it. It's a big piece missing, but I think they can find their way there, especially with the skill positions they have on the outside with Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore. And then, Chuba Hubbard and Royce Freeman sort of mesh into a very, very, very poor version of Christian McCaffrey there. Royce Freeman, a really good running back receiver, so you probably can get some catches out of him. We'll see if Chuba Hubbard can be able to run the ball. It wasn't so much that I thought Carolina was better. I really think these two teams are about right in the same area of level of teams here. I just think the spread at 4.5 is a little bit bloated. I really feel like this is just one of those close games. It's going to come down to the end, and whether Dallas makes poor decisions at the end or if Carolina has the ball at the end. I just think this is a 3-point game going one way or the other. Someone's going to be there to kick a field goal at the end.
I mean, if you feel that way, like I said, I came into this into the show kind of having an inkling about Carolina. If that's how you feel, I mean, I don't know if you want to lock it down.
All right, we'll lock down the Carolina Panthers. That gives us 2 in our mutuals. All right. I will say, of ones I had highlighted, it's a long way down the list for the rest.
Let me ask you a quick question before you move on. How do you feel about that 51.5 point over under?
I just don't know. Dallas has been going surprisingly under, and unders have been really, really hot so far this year. I would lean a little under on this one, but I just sort of want to see how this Carolina defense does versus an offense of this level. And I sort of want to see how the Dallas offense does against Carolina. If they're able to force turnovers, which is what I'm a little bit scared of, then that gives Carolina points, and then we get, in and around that over under. So I just didn't have a good feel on it one way or the other. I thought that 51.5 was sort of middling. It doesn't hit into that low area, and it doesn't hit into that high area. It's in the sort of area where we have no clue, and we know you have no clue. So we're going to make it very tough to bet on it one way or the other. What was your feel on that one?
I don't know. I mean, I was looking at just a complete total, and I thought that if Carolina's defense can play the way that they've been playing against the opposition, maybe they slow down this Dallas team enough to where, we have kind of like a 17, 14, 21, 24 type of game. And if that's the case, I mean, you'd have to have both offenses kind of clicking on all cylinders, and, the defense kind of allowing them to basically take down the field. I think it's kind of high personally, but it's just, again, a gut feeling I had.
Yeah, I do. I would lean more towards the under sort of side of things on that one, but I think I was more scared of turnovers from both sides. This will be Sam Darnold's first game really without Christian McCaffrey. Do we start getting, Sam Darnold turnovers? And then this is probably the best defense that the Cowboys have gone up against so far this year. Do we start getting some, Cowboys sloppy play in that one too? So that's why I sort of just glossed over the over-under because I just didn't have a real good feel on it. All right, we'll move on to the Indianapolis Colts versus the Miami Dolphins. Dolphins are favored by 2. Over-under sits at 42 points. First half is a pick'em for the Dolphins at 0.5, and the total sits at 21 in the first half. This one, I just have question marks galore on it. About the only thing I can say is, I keep saying it, but Indianapolis is sort of a good team that is now sitting at 0-3 on the year. Do we believe they will go 0-4? But we mentioned it in our preview about the tough schedule that the Indianapolis Colts were going to have to start the year. And it was very fathomable that they could start the year 0-5, 0-6, and then the schedule sort of eases up. But, Miami's just a weird team here. They were spunky in that game versus Las Vegas. I was thinking maybe them back home, playing a poor Indianapolis team on the road. I sort of like the way Brissett started to come together there. I sort of leaned a little bit Miami in this -2 here, especially with the injuries on the offensive line to the Indianapolis Colts. But I was not real bullish on this. I was curious your feeling on this one.
When I was looking at this game, I went back to the opponents that each team has played, and they both have played some pretty potent offensive teams. I think that Indianapolis has played the more potent schedule so far. And as you mentioned, they actually have a tougher schedule coming up ahead. I think that at this point right now, where both teams stand with injuries and all that, I think that right now the Colts are slightly better than Miami. And just the fact that Miami is favored in this one, I know they're at home, but I kind of like the Colts. I know that you said you're leaning towards Miami, but just looking at the basic stats where they stand offensively and defensively, I think the Colts are slightly better right now as it stands.
Yeah, the only thing I would give the check mark here is the position unit I know that has the best sort of advantage here is the Miami defense. I look at the Miami offense and Colt offense. I think it's pretty similar. I think the Colts defense has been a little bit leaky this year. I do trust that Miami defense. I trust them down there in Miami in that heat. And this will also be Indianapolis's second road game in a row. So I think they'll struggle a little bit there. But I was not bullish on this game. I did not really want to bet on Miami because I don't really know where they stand right now. And I have no real feel on Indianapolis because Wentz is just a wild card. He's playing with 2 sprained ankles. He's not being real aggressive with the ball. The Colts receivers have been out. They don't have a lot of depth there. They haven't found a way to get Jonathan Taylor going. They have injuries along that offensive line. So I was mostly a stay away with this game. Other than that 42 number, I probably would lean a little bit over on that. But, even that, it scares me a little bit there too.
I mean, these are 2 teams that are ranked in the bottom half of the league on total offense. Again, make of that what you will. I know it's early on the defensive side of the ball. The Colts are slightly better than the Dolphins are, even though the Dolphins have probably, at least to the eyeball test, looked a little better defensively. The Colts actually rank a little bit better on overall defense. So that's the only reason why I was leaning a little more towards the Colts. But again, this is just in my maybe column.
Yeah, I think that's probably where this sits. It's not a game really to be measured on. I just think there's too many injuries in this game to sort of get a good feel on this game. All right, we'll move on to our next matchup. The Cleveland Browns go to the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings are 1.5-point underdogs in this one. 51 is the total in this one. The first half sits at pick 'em a half point towards the Minnesota Vikings. At 25.5 is the first half total in here. This one, I didn't end up making a pick on it, mostly because I think I probably have a heart attack if I actually went with what I feel here. I like the Vikings here in this game. I'm liking the way that offense is humming right now. Do I love the defense? No, but it seemed to have gotten a little bit better each passing week. Maybe the Cincinnati Bengals are not the worst team in the world. They are now 3-1. That record is a little bit lopsided. I think when they start, playing a couple more upper echelon teams, they might fall back to earth a little bit. But maybe that Vikings loss there is not too bad. You look at it, they should have won that game versus Arizona. They had a really nice win last week versus Seattle. Cleveland, I'm still not sold on 100%. Yes, last week they dominated the game versus the Chicago Bears, but that was a limp noodle game. That was versus a coaching staff that's incompetent versus a quarterback who probably should not have been in the game. So I sort of write off that Bears game, and I look at what I've seen from the Cleveland Browns in those two games before that, and I don't know if I trust this defense. I look at the Minnesota Vikings, and I look at them being able to get the ball deep down the field in this situation and really tear up that Cleveland secondary here.
I see where you're coming from, and it makes a lot of sense. But I'm actually going to go the other way here. This is one of the games that I felt really comfortable about. I like the Cleveland Browns in this one. I feel like they're a more complete team. Yes, you look at Minnesota, and they've been explosive on offense, even without Cook in the last game, which is, arguably their best player on that team. They still managed to move the ball around, and they've been competitive in every game. And it's solely based on the fact that their offense has been very explosive this season. Now, with that being said, I think that the Cleveland defense is good enough to slow them down. They have a really good pass rush. They have guys in the secondary that can make some plays, and that offense has actually been humming. They're top 5 on both offense and defense overall. And the fact that Minnesota is also, ranked pretty high on offense, give me a little bit of a pause. But when I looked at their defensive rankings, they have no defense. We think about this Minnesota team, and we think about the defense they had a few seasons ago, and it probably, lingers in the back of your mind a little bit, but that defense is bad. And you're going up against a team that's been playing really good on offense. To me, this has the recipe of being an upset. So, not an upset, but a whooping, basically. So this is one of the games that I felt comfortable about. I'm actually going to go give the Cleveland Browns some love, and I'm going to roll with the Cleveland Browns here.
All right. So you're on Cleveland. I am not quite on Minnesota. So we're at odds this one. The Delvin Cook question remains. He's been limited in practice this week. He says he's going to play. So that plays a little bit more of a part. I want to see if Dalvin is healthy and playing in this game. I see where you're coming from, the Cleveland defense, but I think a little bit of that got bloated because last week, basically they held the team to 0 net yards, which pretty much helps your average everywhere you're going. I don't think their defense is bad, but I do think it's more of a middle of the pack defense than what we saw in the game versus the Texans and game versus the Chiefs the previous 2 weeks. And you're correct. Minnesota's defense is terrible. It's been terrible. All season long. It probably will continue to be terrible this week. I'm just curious if the Cleveland offense, once again, they'll be limited at the wide receiver position here. I do think Odell Beckham will play, but he's not even a functional receiver really anymore, other than he has a cool name and people seem to like collecting his, cards, but he's no longer a good receiver.
Do you have one of his cards?
No, I do not have one of his cards. I have not been a huge Odell Beckham Jr. fan. Really ever. I thought he's been a little bit overrated. He made a one-handed catch and then we all freak out. And I wanted to say pretty much every receiver that's playing in professional football and probably 90% of the ones playing in college football all can make one-handed catches. It's not that impressive.
Listen, I will say this. Odell Beckham was a waiver wire pickup for me that season when he had that one-handed catch. So maybe have a little hidden love for him and the Cleveland Browns deep down inside. But I kind of like the Browns, like I said earlier.
Yeah, I'm leaning a little bit towards the Vikings here. So we'll wipe that one off the mat and we'll move on to our next game, though that one should be I'm really interested to watch that game. That'll definitely be a prime viewing game to watch Cleveland and Minnesota this week. So good, entertaining game to watch. We'll see which one of us comes out on the side of that one. Next up, the New York Giants go to the New Orleans Saints. Saints are 7.5-point favorites here. The total sits at a low 41. First half is -4.5 for the Saints, and the total sits at 21 in the first half here. You know, this was one of those where I didn't like either side at any point. I think it will take a whole lot to get me to be on the Giants side pretty much the rest of the season. They're in that little black book that says do not bet on pretty much all season long unless something magically changes. But, you know, I think it's becoming one of those things where I sort of like the Saints as underdogs. I don't know if I like them as favorites a whole lot. Even in New Orleans, this will be officially in New Orleans. It's not going to be in Tampa or wherever else they play. It will be their first home game of the season. So I think that's a little bit why this line is boosted up a little bit higher than I think it should be. I think this thing should probably be around 5.5 points, but it is 7.5. And that's where I get off because I just have not seen enough from the New Orleans Saints offense to feel confident and sell you that the Saints are covering a 7.5-point spread versus really anybody, even somebody as poor as the Giants right now.
Now, I will come out and say this on the record, okay? The Giants are not as good as I've been claiming that they are. Now, I still have love for the Giants, but I'm going to hide it deep down inside where it can't fester into me making bets.
Well, I think they've lost you money 3 weeks in a row. So.
I don't count those first 3 weeks, so whatever. I'm writing those off. But, yeah, you're right. I liked nothing about this game either. I thought the line was completely overblown. I don't see where it's coming from. The Saints have a really good defense. They're ranked 6th in overall defense, while their offense is ranked 31st. I don't know how you can explain that. From what I saw, I know they had one bad game, but I didn't think it was bad enough to put them all the way down to 31st overall in offense. That being said, the Giants are kind of middle of the pack, lower tier, middle of the pack, both offense and defense. But even then, they've cost me 3 weeks, like you said. So I can't find a way to take either team here.
Yeah, I think if I could get a good feel on what the Saints offense is going to do, I think I'd be a little bit more aggressive towards the Saints. I don't know if I'd be aggressive towards this 7.5 number, but I just don't have a good feel about the Saints. And I feel it'll be a lot of sort of close to the vest. If they get up in this game, I think they'll just try to run this down in this game. You know, rush the passer hard versus the Giants, which they've been doing really well all season long.
I think this is going to be a game of coaching pedigree. I think that it's going to come down to the coaching schemes. And I think New Orleans does have the better coach here, but 7.5 points, even at home, I just don't feel comfortable. I don't know which Saints offense is going to show up.
Yeah. And until I see Saquon Barkley really sort of find his rhythm, I just can't really lean towards the Giants in any which way. And I have thought that Giants defense, you know, last year it was a little bit spunky. It's sort of what won them some games. It's probably what brought you in and really sort of liked them. And they really haven't been very sharp to start the year. Maybe that starts to come around. But right now, I don't even think that defense on the Giants can be trusted too much from what we've seen this year. So, you know, this is sort of a non-play. You know, the unders have been hitting all over the place, so I think they've adjusted these numbers a little bit. 41 is a really, really, really low number, but I don't know if I'm quite feeling as aggressive to really jump on an over in a Giants-Saints game from what I've seen so far this year. I was wondering if you maybe had a lean towards that or you just stay away from that because you have no clue what's coming out of either side of these offenses.
That's exactly what it is if I knew which type of offense we're going to get from the Saints, I might have felt a little more comfortable taking either an over or an under. But just not knowing what we're getting from the Saints offense, I know what we're going to get from the Saints defense, but I don't know what we're going to get from the offense. And as I stated earlier, the Giants are middle of the pack. They can surprise you either way. They can score or they can get scored on. And I just don't feel comfortable about it either way. So I'm just a complete stay away.
I would like to know I probably should have looked it up, how many times Sean Payton has been 41-point total over under, and how many times it's gone under that number. Maybe I'll have that for Winning Daily on a Saturday, Sunday to see what that.
Try to get those next gen stats. I doubt there's very many.
I saw that when I was typing it out, and I was like, wow, that's really low for a Saints game. But then you start calculating their ahead, and it's like, well, the Saints are not those Saints anymore. The Saints are a defensive team who tries to keep Jameis from throwing the ball as much as they can. All right, we'll move on to our next game. The Tennessee Titans go to the New York Jets. The Tennessee Titans are 7-point road favorites here. Total sits at 44.5. First half sits at 4 for the Tennessee Titans, and the total sits at 23 here. First glance, I wanted to take the Titans, but I think we saw it a little bit yesterday with Trevor Lawrence. When these rookie quarterbacks finally get to face a defense that is not the most stranglehold stringent thing, they start to play a little bit better. So that's what has me a little bit concerned in this game. Maybe Zach Wilson, yes, his weapons aren't there, but finds a little bit of a rhythm here versus a defense that has been really poor to start the year. And not only that, you look at these Titan game, and other than that second half versus the Seattle Seahawks, their offense has not really been humming all that much either. Now, that second half versus Seahawks was really, really nice. But last week versus the Colts, there were a lot of turnovers. They couldn't really get Henry going in a good way. They sort of just scrapped clawed their way to a win in that one. The first game of the season versus Arizona, they were awful. And then that first half for Seattle, they were awful. So really, if you look at it so far this year, the Titans have played one really good half of offense and sort of found their way to get wins in that. So I'm not real huge on taking 7-point favorites on the roads, even if it is versus a awful Jets team. I will say this Jets team's defense has been pretty stingy as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly at first glance when I looked at this game, I was like, oh, easy, 7 points, Titans versus the Jets. Like, this is an easy win. But I started diving more into it. The Titans offense seems more explosive to us when they're running their offense through Tannehill. When he's kind of slinging the ball out there, getting into his big wide receivers, they look like a very explosive offense. They currently sit, like at the bottom half of the league. I believe they're 15th overall on offense, 15th overall on defense. Surprisingly, they're 15th overall on defense. That's the biggest surprise to me. They haven't looked good, but they also haven't, been super bad. They haven't been nowhere near as bad as they were last season. And they've played some pretty good offenses also. So I think things are looking up for that defense. And the reason that offense doesn't look as good as we're used to is because it's become a lot more balanced. You see Derrick Henry's currently leading the league in rushing as we speak. And I think that's good for this team. You want to conserve that. That's the type of team you want to have. You want to slow things down. You want to get your defense some rest because your defense is not that good and the depth isn't all that there. So you want to make sure that they get enough rest. So as much as I think that Tennessee's going to win this game, and I could totally see them winning by multiple touchdowns, I just don't feel comfortable enough to say that the Jets offense doesn't finally get going. I don't feel confident enough to put some money on it. So even though I think it's an easy win for the Titans, I'm going to stay away from it.
Yeah. The other thing about this is the health status of both A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. We're recording on this on Friday. We don't know if those guys are fully fit and ready to go for their Sunday game. So, if those two are out, that starts to drop a little bit on the receiver depth there. So I'm just to stay away in this game. Overall, I had a brief, look-see at that over on both the 44.5 and the 23 in the first half. I'd probably 44.5 is way too much from what we've seen from this Jets defense so far, or Jets offense so
Offense.
far. But 23 maybe in that first half. If the Jets can get a score there, I do think Tennessee can get in and around probably 17 points there. So that sort of piqued my interest that first half over 23.
Yeah, I personally just think that they're too high. And just based off the Jets offense, their defense, I believe, is good enough to slow the Tennessee Titans down on a few drives here and there. But I just don't trust that offense. So to me, it's just too high.
Yeah, definitely so. All right, we'll move on to the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Philadelphia Eagles. And, I came in with hope that the Chiefs would not get a bloated line for once in my life. And, it just seems that we might never be able to take the Chiefs again in a bet with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. Anyway, the Chiefs are 7-point favorites going to Philadelphia. The total sits at 54.5 in this one. I'm curious what you made of this line here. The Eagles have looked bad really 2 weeks in a row, so this might be a get-right game for Kansas City. But with their defense, I can't take a 7-point road favorite here, no matter from what I've seen from Philadelphia, especially last week, playing a similar team in the Dallas Cowboys to the Kansas City Chiefs.
I'll tell you right now, I'm surprised that Vegas didn't bloat it even more. I expected it to be kind of like a 9.5-point spread. And that's simply because of the fact that currently, as we speak, Kansas City has one of the top offenses in the league. Their biggest issue and their Achilles heel so far this season has been that defense. That defense currently ranks 30th in the NFL overall defense. And they're going up against a Philadelphia team that has shown sparks here and there. Last week, they didn't look all too good. They came alive in that second half, but they really didn't start off at all. They threw that big interception to start off the game, and it really kind of slowed that offense down. But on defense, Philadelphia's been doing a lot of what we've talked about, which is basically get after the quarterback and try your best to not expose that secondary, which is probably their weakest area on that defense. But with that being said, this is the Kansas City Chiefs. I understand why they bloat these lines. You look at this roster, and it's just, completely stacked with superstars. So I just think, I don't know. To me, this game, when I was looking at it, the only thing that probably interested me was the over-under. I felt like it was a tad bit high, especially if, that Eagles defense can slow down that Kansas City offense, which is where I expect the majority of the points to come from.
Yeah, the thing that concerned me really is Kansas City's rush defense has been brutal this year. And, I do think with Jalen Hurts back there, it's not a like-for-like comparison with Lamar Jackson, but Jalen Hurts, similarly, they put him in, those run-pass option formulas, get him out on the outside and get him to run a handful of times. The Kansas City Chiefs seem to struggle stopping that. So I worry a little bit that maybe this Eagles offense can get going a little bit based on being able to get chunk plays in the run game with Hurts and Miles Sanders. And then maybe they're able to get a handful of, play action deep passes off that as the secondary for the Kansas City Chiefs creep up. And, on the other side of things, I think Kansas City probably lights them up pretty easy to what they want to do. So I do think Kansas City probably can get to that 30-point mark. It's sort of where you think Philadelphia can get to. And I thought they could probably get to 24 in this game. So I was just sort of in the stay away zone in this one on both sides of the over-under total. I thought it was sort of in and around right where I thought that score would go. And then just -7 on the road. I don't want to do that. And I think I mention this stat every week. The Kansas City Chiefs are now 13-1 since November of last year against the spread. So anyone who's been betting on the Chiefs is not winning a lot of money. That's worse than you betting on the Giants of late.
Yes, that's done with already. That's ancient history.
All right, we'll move on to the next game. This one, I'm interested to get your feel and take on this one. Because I had an interesting feel and take. I didn't end up highlighting it for anything. Arizona Cardinals go to the Los Angeles Rams. It's a 4-point spread for the Rams here, 54.5 points. Here's the total on this one. The first half sits at 3.5. The first half total sits at 26.5 in this. I think this is an interesting game. I probably should stay away from it necessarily, especially it involving Arizona, who just seems to play wacky and crazy games here. But, we've talked about it a little bit, how we think this Rams run defense has been a little bit soft to start the year. But this is where I factor that once again, much like I factored it last week into the Tampa Bay thing. I don't know if Arizona is capable of hurting them on the run too much. So I think the Rams have an advantage here. I think that Arizona defense has seemed to got worse week to week. Anyone who watched that game versus Jacksonville last week, they were losing 19-14 until they got a pick on a flea flicker right before there. I think the coaching matchup in this one is a little bit lopsided. So I did sort of like this 4 number here. But it always gives me pause with this Arizona team because there's no telling what you're going to get, and you're no telling what you're going to get if they get behind late. They might just start winging the ball over and sort of close this and backdoor you. I'm curious how you feel about this game.
I'll just let you know right now, I'm not taking any action on this game, even though I do see a few, situations where there could be some payoffs here and there. I'm not taking any action on it. Just being a Ram fan, I think this is a very important game. This is basically for the lead in the division. I know it's early in the season, but both teams are starting off pretty hot. Both of them are 3-0, and they have different builds. The Rams have an explosive offense, but they're more traditional, whereas in the Cardinals have an explosive offense, but they're more new school. Kind of these sidearm throws and these scramble and trying to get one of those breakaway plays. Even with all that being said, divisional opponents always gives me pause. I feel like they always play each other tough, and you're talking about 2 of the better teams in the league right now. I could definitely see a scenario where the Rams blow them out. Like you said, they have a similar type of situation as the Buccaneers, where they don't have such strong run game, which benefits the Rams because then they can really focus on those wide receivers. And you have a star cornerback in Jalen Ramsey that you pretty much move him around the field throughout the game, and he can make plays for you. But I will say this: if I wasn't a Ram fan and I wasn't so interested in this game, if I was literally just going to go ahead and bet, I could totally see this being a field goal game, and I would not be opposed to taking, the +4 with Arizona here.
Yeah, I feel like this Rams team can get this game. I think they'll. I don't think they'll have a letdown from last week. I think they'll run this up and sort of show that they're the dominant team in the NFL right now. That doesn't mean much in week 4 because nobody really cares who the dominant team is in week 4. They care more about who the dominant team is in week 22 of the season here. I will say, I noticed the ticket split on this. 56% of the tickets are coming in on Arizona. 60% of the money is coming in on the Rams. So, theoretically, that tells you that the sharp bettors sort of like the Rams here. I'm leaning that way, but I will stay away this week. I talked you into the Rams last week. I'm not quite as bullish on it this week to be as I was last week. So we'll flip past the Ram game. Really, another good, interesting game to watch to see how Arizona, I think more so, comes out and plays this game, because I think a lot of people, not just us, think they're a little bit fraudulent. And if they can come in and play the Rams tough, we'll know they at least can compete on that level.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, we'll go to the other division game in here. Another good one here. The Seattle Seahawks go to the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers 3-point favorites. 51.5 points is the over-under on this one. The first half sits at 1.5 for San Francisco, 24.5 for the first half in that game as the total. Really interesting game here. The Seahawks have really, really played bad. It's probably a question, do you think the Seahawks will lose 3 games in a row? I know they're on the back-to-back road situation here, going to Minnesota, now going to Santa Barbara here to play San Francisco.
Santa Clarita.
Yeah. How I said Santa Barbara. They might be in the wrong place.
Same state, doesn't matter.
Maybe the Chargers will come down and play them then.
There you go.
All right. So they'll be in Santa Clara, hopefully, not Santa Barbara. Anyway, so interesting here. We haven't seen much from Seattle since that first game versus the Colts. Can they bounce back here? San Francisco coming off a tough defeat to Green Bay in those last seconds. I will say I sort of want to take Seattle here, but then my gut is telling you, trust what you've seen so far. Trust your eyes. Take San Francisco in this one. And I just, I probably end up leaning San Francisco, but I don't like this -3 spread in this one just because I don't know what we're getting from Seattle. Maybe we get that Seattle game where they're playing for their lives. It seems a little early to say playing for your lives, but, I don't think Seattle wants to go 2-1-3. But then again, I don't know if San Francisco wants to go to 2-2. So it's just a really hard game to get a read on here.
This is a really important game for both teams. As we mentioned, in the previous segment, you got the Rams and the Cardinals going up against each other. Both of them sit at 3-0. One of them is going to end up at 4-0. The other one's going to be 3-1. And you have the two bottom dwellers, which are pretty talented teams, respectively, both of them. And it's a really important game because, as you said, you don't want to, be in last place in this division, probably the toughest division of football. With all that being said, just looking at this game, looking at the stats, I obviously look at the 49ers, and the 49ers seem like the better team, especially right now. But the 49ers have been a tale of two halves this season. They're completely gone one half, and then they show up the second half, or they show up the first half, and then they completely disappear and let the other team in the second half. So I'm not completely sold on San Francisco yet. I think that they still have some development to do. I know they've had, a little bit of a run with injuries here, but, this is the team that we're constantly talking about, next man up. And it seems like they're having a little harder time this season so far. And even another thing is I learned watching him season after season after season, you don't bet against Russell Westbrook. So staying away from this one.
Well,
Russell Wilson,
I bet against Russell Westbrook all the time.
No, Russell Wilson.
I don't bet against Russell Wilson.
I'm thinking Seattle Supersonics here.
Both our minds are in Southern California for some reason and not Northern California.
Yeah, baby. I'm excited to see Russell Westbrook. We're definitely going to have to get to some NBA action when it comes around.
We might have to get into a little bit of NBA action. We might bring you in for a win totals podcast on the NBA action this season to get into it. We might have a podcast coming of just me talking about the training camps and as they open up into the NBA season. But we're doing football right now before we move on to the NBA.
Yes, Russell Wilson.
But Russell Wilson will be playing quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks. I hope. If it's Russell Westbrook, I'm thinking we take San Francisco in this way.
Yeah, that is definitely a lock. Although, the way Russell Wilson has been playing, I don't know.
Now, how does Russell Westbrook play quarterback? Does he just take the snap and carry it every play, or does he take the snap and refuse to hand it off and pass it every play?
Look at the guy's numbers, okay? The guy, is a triple-double machine, okay? And we're talking about assists. We're not talking about, just points and rebound. This guy gets assists, okay? And what does the quarterback do? He dishes out assists. That's what he's going to do. So I could see him playing quarterback. I wouldn't want him on my team. But
do the old school thing where he takes a snap, throws it high in the air, tries to run and catch it himself.
Possibly. I mean, it does seem like a Russell Westbrook type thing to do. So.
And then doesn't he leak in on defense as well and try to play safety or a defensive end?
Listen, I'm happy he's on my team. Okay, stop trash talking the guy.
I love Russ. Come on, it's just a little fun. All right. So, the other thing I getting back to this game that I thought was weird was, I went to Football Outsiders. I looked at the total DVOA, and actually they have Seattle at 10 and they have San Francisco at 12. And I think that speaks to, San Francisco. They play good for a half, they play good for a quarter, and then they really seem to drop off. You mentioned it in the Green Bay game. They were terrible to start the first half, came back second half. In that Detroit game, they were great to start the first half, terrible in that fourth quarter. And then even versus that Eagles game, which they controlled and dominated for the most part, they still sort of let the Eagles back in there in that second half. So, I think that plays into it a little bit, and that's probably what has me a little bit cautious on this. So I'm probably a stay away on this. The only thing I wanted to ask you about is that 51.5. I'm curious where you think that number is going right there. You think under on that one?
I like the under. A divisional opponent, both of these teams, even though Seattle hasn't been playing really good defense, as a matter of fact, that they're last in total defense in the league right now, which is kind of similar to what they did last season when they started off. That defense was horrendous, and it seems like they're following the same type of blueprint. With that being said, they did win the division, so it worked out for them in the end. But I think this becomes a defensive matchup. I think that both of these teams know each other very well. They've both seen each other numerous times. They both even competed, for division titles a few years ago. So I think this has the potential to become a low-scoring affair where both offenses struggle just because defenses know what's coming and, who they're going to be looking for.
All right. So I really like the under on that one as well. So maybe we highlight that one as our third mutual pick. We'll go with the Seattle Seahawks, San Francisco 49ers under the 51.5. All right. So we got 3 in the books. We got 4 more games to go. 3 really good games left and 1 interesting game left, at least on this number side of thing. Baltimore Ravens go to the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos are 1-point favorites in this game. 44.5 is the total. First half sits at pick 'em here with a -0.5 point towards the Denver Broncos. 21.5 is a first half total in this one. I will say I really like this one towards myself. I think there's value here in the Baltimore Ravens, just because I do not trust this Denver Broncos team. You look at sort of a paper 3-0, and we have Jets, Giants, Jags as their 3 wins in that. And, they lost Tim Patrick this week. So now they are down 2 of their top 3 receivers. They're down Bradley Chubb. I think this Ravens team did not look great versus Detroit, but I think if, Hollywood Brown makes 1 or 2 of those catches that would have been touchdowns in that first half, it all of a sudden becomes 17, 20-0 in that first half. And we don't have that weird second half where Lamar started playing well and Detroit made a little push to come back and they needed that miracle to win. So I do think this is really the first step up for Denver to play a real team this season. And I think Baltimore has value here getting +1 versus the Denver Broncos. The only thing that can be said, they were in Detroit. Now they're in Denver. That probably plays a little bit of a strategy that's back-to-back road games. But I really like Baltimore here. What do you think?
This particular game, you're looking at the number 4 overall ranked offense in Baltimore Ravens going up against the number 2 overall defense in the Denver Broncos. As you mentioned, my biggest cause for concern is that Denver offense. They look very promising to start off the season, and now you're dealing with injuries, which is obviously going to, take a toll on the rest of your guys. I think that I don't know, to be honest with you. I kind of had a feeling about Denver in this game, but again, this was one of those games, as I mentioned at the top of the show, where I was kind of hoping you could sell me either way. And just listening to you talk, it makes a lot of sense. The injuries are going to play a big factor in this, even though that Denver Bronco defense has potential to be really good this season. That Baltimore offense is playing really good right now, and it's all because of Lamar Jackson. So I guess we could put this one down as a maybe for the Ravens. You definitely, swayed me to the other side. I was leaning Broncos, but after hearing you talk, I think I'm leaning a little more to the Ravens now.
Yeah, it's not. I think the Baltimore defense, which has not been great to start the year, is a little bit skewed because they opened with the Las Vegas Raiders. Having seen them play, they're one of the best offenses in the NFL right now. And then you play the Kansas City Chiefs. No duty to explain anything there. They are going to shred anyone and everyone, no matter what. So The only thing that's a little was that Detroit game, but their offense wasn't all that great in that game. It was a tight, more 16-16 sort of affair there. So I think the defense will start to come around here, especially with Tim Patrick and Jerry Jeudy missing on the offensive side of things. That sort of starts to cut down weapons for Teddy Bridgewater to throw to. Teddy's not some guy who's going to make plays for his receivers. He needs his receivers to be open, and he's going to make plays there. I think this Baltimore offense, I don't think the turnovers will continue. I think that's a little bit of a misnomer. Hopefully Hollywood Brown makes his catches this week because, when they really get hurt when they set up those, deep play action type plays and they have the guy wide open down the field and then they make those drops. Baltimore's offense can't afford those things. I think that was a little bit of a fluke thing in that. So I just look for Baltimore to get back on track. They tend to beat up on the lower tier teams. I said that last week. We did win that first half. It was the second half where we got burned. So luckily we made the smart play there. But I think them getting points, even in Denver, I think they'll come out okay here.
Okay, I mean, if you want to put that down as mutual, then I'll roll with you on that one. Like I said, I was leaning Broncos, but you've swayed me.
All right. We'll be leaning the Baltimore Ravens this week, and then you can yell at me how good the Denver Broncos are when they actually beat a team of substance. All right, next up, Pittsburgh Steelers go to the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay Packers are 6.5-point favorites. 45.5 is the point total here. First half, -4 for the Green Bay Packers. 23 points first half total in this one. Really hard game to handicap here. I just don't like that 6.5 number. I do think there's a pretty solid chance from what we've seen from the Pittsburgh Steelers offense, especially if some of the defensive guys don't come back in this game. Green Bay rolls a little bit here, but I just don't like that 6.5 number. That just seems a little bit too big a jump for me. But, if you start to match up numbers wise, Green Bay's offense should be able to extend out. And it doesn't seem like Pittsburgh's offense will be able to hurt Green Bay where they're deficient in the run game. Green Bay's line started to get pressure last week on San Francisco. If they're able to get past San Francisco's line, which is one of the better lines in the league, they probably will carve to shreds this Pittsburgh Steelers line. And I just can't give you a reason to take the Steelers, but I don't like Green Bay at 6.5 in this one.
Yeah, I feel the same way you do. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that, to start off the year, if I were to tell you that the better defensive team in this matchup was going to be the Packers and the better offensive team in this matchup was going to be the Steelers, you'd probably think I was crazy, but that's what it is. Now, the numbers are a little diluted, obviously, because of injuries and opponents, strength of schedule, things like that. But as it sits right now, the Pittsburgh Steelers are 26th overall in total offense. The Green Bay is 27th in total offense. Now, this all has to do with basically balance on offense because they take the running yards per game and the passing yards per game. They combine them, and they get a total for total offense. Defensively, though, surprisingly, the Steelers, I know that they right now are suffering a little bit with injuries with Watt, their main guy on defense, being out, but Packers are actually ranked 8th in total defense right now. So their defense has been keeping that offense in games. The offense has not been playing up to the standard that we are expected, to see when we watch a Green Bay Packer game. So for me, when I look at this line, when I look at the, the over-unders, to me, I just don't know how to handicap any of it. So to me, this is a stay away.
Yeah, I think this is just a stay away. It might be something worth throwing in a teaser if people want teasers. I think Green Bay wins this game. I just don't know if they cover this 6.5-point number. And, a lot of questionable players right now on this Friday for the Pittsburgh defense, which sort of will tell how probably this game will go. If those guys play, I think this Pittsburgh Steelers team gets a little bit better defensively. If they don't play, Green Bay probably will clean up with them pretty easy here. But so I think that's just a stay away game. I didn't really have a good feel on any of the over-unders. 45.5 just sits a little bit too much in the middle on the high and low side that I didn't love, especially if we end up getting like no points from the Steelers side of things. So just a probably pass game overall in this side of things. But we'll move on to the next one. We won't play an Adele montage to bring this game into to talk about, sadly. But anyway.
As nice as it would fit in, right?
Yeah, God. I haven't even been able to watch anything because I haven't wanted to hear the non-talk about this for a week. Anyway, Tampa Bay Bucks versus the New England Patriots. Brady's coming back. I don't really care about that. I just want to watch a football game. So anyway, the sound will probably be on mute for Sunday Night Football anyway, because I don't want to hear it. But Tampa Bay Bucks, New England Patriots. Patriots getting 7 points here. Total sits at 49. First half is 3.5. Total sits at 24 here. I will say that for the first time this year, I am leaning a little bit Patriots here, just because, you know, I think this is where it belongs for the Patriots. If the Patriots are favorites, I do not like them because I don't think they can score points. The Patriots as underdogs, and certainly touchdown underdogs here at home, I really do like that because I do think this defense will be able to step up, slow down that Tampa Bay offense, much like the Rams offense did. Now, the question comes, what can the New England offense give us? That I have no clue. I'm curious your feeling on the game.
I have mixed emotions about this game because when I first looked at it, I thought this was a recipe for a complete blowout. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that, like you said, I've been listening to the storylines over and over again, and I think they've implanted themselves in my brain, and the seed has started to grow. The whole Brady returning to Foxborough, the whole Gronk return to Foxborough, Belichick versus Brady, who was the actual, the person responsible for all those championships there.
Their defense was the person responsible.
I still think it's a combination of everything. It was the coaching staff, it was the players, it was everything. So, yes, Tom Brady is probably the greatest of all time. Whatever, we've heard all the arguments. Coming into it, I was really leaning towards the Bucks in this one, and the wife probably doesn't want to hear it, because she's a big Patriot fan, and I can't keep it on mute. I'm pretty sure that was going to be on TV one here, with the wife really excited about this particular matchup.
Did she like the Adele montage last?
I'm not sure if she's seen it. I haven't spoken to her yet. I actually had to do an overnight shift, so I haven't seen her. But I'm sure if she did, she's probably really pumped up right now. Besides that, getting back to the game, the defense for the New England Patriots has been stout, and even though they haven't really shown it in terms of wins, they've been really stingy both against the run and the pass. Sometimes they're a little bit better against the run. Sometimes it depends on the opponent. When you look at Tampa Bay, they're going to come at you and they're going to attack you through the air. We saw last week against the Rams that on the ground, they had a really hard time getting going. And I expect a lot of the same going on. I think Bill Belichick knows exactly how to attack this offense with this defense. The question mark is, as you said, what can we expect from this Patriot offense? And that's the part that scares me, which is one of the reasons why I'm leaning more towards the Bucks on this one.
Yeah, you're leaning Bucks. I'm leaning Pats. And I'll say this. I think from what I've seen from the Tampa Bay defense, I think this New England offense will be able to sort of short pass them to death here and be able to at least sustain enough offense here that they can at least get enough points to cover the 7. I don't think they'll win this game, but I think that 7 is a little bit too big a number for this game. I don't think this Tampa Bay offense right now is going to be able to score enough points to cover a 7-point spread, mixed with the Tampa Bay defense, which has been really, really poor so far this year. So, I don't love the Patriots, but I like them when they're getting plus at home, this big a number, especially with a defense that I know can control this Tampa Bay offense.
I'll tell you what, we're currently at three mutuals right now, right?
We're at 4.
We're at 4. Okay. I'll tell you what.
We took some over under. Baltimore, no. We took Baltimore. We took the Arizona, no. San Francisco, we took the under at 51.5.
Okay. I'll tell you this, all right? Even though I'm leaning towards Tampa Bay, I'm doing this for wifey and I'm doing it for you. Put us down in the maybe for the New England Patriots, my +7.
I'm sending you the Lawrence Maroney jersey that you can wear.
I'm sure she's got something I could wear. I just don't know if I'd wear it.
She probably has a Corey Dillon jersey sitting somewhere.
She's got a Falk one somewhere around there too.
Which one?
Falk.
Oh, all right. Well, that explains a lot. Her favorite player is a slot back who played on third downs.
No, she's got a few of them. She's got a few of them. I see
James
Patriot
White.
stuff.
Does she just go for the little running backs and play on third down?
I think that's what she prefers. But I think I even saw a Moss one there. But if I see the Patriots logo, I'm not touching it. That's her stuff. I'm sticking to my Ram stuff.
All right. So we'll go to last one. Even though we got 5, we might want to flip one of those out. But this was not one I really wanted to flip out or even touch because I have no clue what I'm getting here, other than probably an entertaining football game. Las Vegas Raiders versus the Los Angeles Chargers. Chargers, the 3-point favorites. 51 is the total here, first half at -3 for the Chargers, and 25.5 in this one. This should be a really, really entertaining game. Really excited to see how these two teams match up. They played really, really good football to start the seasons. Las Vegas has won 2 overtime games. The Chargers have managed to shoot themselves in the foot and probably should be 3-0, but they probably also could be 1-2 from the way they play the season so far. But really, really a whole lot of talent on the offensive side of things, and both teams' defensives has stepped up and played good football here. So I just wanted no part of this line. I just think it'll be a really, really entertaining game, how this game plays out. I'm curious how you think this game's going to play out.
I think this is going to be a close matchup. We're talking about divisional opponents, not just divisional opponents, but divisional rivals. We've talked about it pretty much since the beginning of the season, how the NFC West was the best, division, if not in football, at least in the NFC. And the AFC is turning out to be the best division in the AFC. And some might even argue the best division in football with all the talent they have in that division. The Raiders are ranked number 1 in offense. The Chargers aren't far behind. They're top 10. They're sitting at 9th in overall offense. On defense, they're both around middle of the pack, but still respectable. I think this is going to be a good matchup. I think that if I had to lean any which way, I would probably lean towards the Raiders, just because they've shown a lot of offense so far this season, and they have a slightly better defense. The Chargers have shown a bit of a habit of, committing a ton of penalties throughout the game, and it's cost them a couple of games, one in particular that you mentioned earlier. So I think if I had to lean either way, I would probably lean more towards the Raiders, but I think this is going to be a good matchup just to watch.
Well, that's interesting because I sort of had a lean towards the Raiders as well. So I think we're both thinking that the Chargers seem to do things that cost them games. And at -3, we'd rather have the team that's getting points in this one.
Yep.
I like this Raiders team. Speaking of short little running backs, I might have my Napoleon Kaufman jersey on for this one.
Wow, you went there.
I didn't really want to overreact to the Raiders because they have won 2 overtime games. And, theoretically, if they lost both those overtime games, we'd probably be like, oh, same old Raiders. They do a lot on offense, don't do enough on defense, blah, 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 blah. The same things. But since they've won those 2, everybody's sort of fascinated with them. That's the thing. If the Raiders are good, people like when the Raiders are good and everybody gets behind them. Silver and black, they got the cool pirate logo going. It's just a team probably the world loves. The Cowboys might be America's team, but I think everybody sort of likes to root for the Raiders and the Raiders to be good. So maybe that comes into play a little bit here. But I've liked the way they've played this year, and I just seen too many times the Chargers sort of shoot themselves in the foot and try to cost themselves games. So I lean a little bit on the +3. I don't know if you want to switch one of those out since we were both on the same wavelength here, or just go with the 5 that we had before that.
I mean, it's up to you. Like I said, I had coming into this is one of the games that I kind of had a good feeling about. Just as you mentioned earlier, because the Chargers do so much, cost themselves games, and the Raiders are playing really good offense right now. So, you mix both of those things together and you see the potential for a win for the Raiders here. So, and as you mentioned, they're getting 3 points. That is always helpful. So I'll leave it up to you. You're the big boss man, so I'm gonna leave this one up to you. But I think that we've got some pretty good picks, and I think that's also a good pick. So,
well, I'll tell you what, you were a little bit leaning towards the Broncos when we did the Ravens and Broncos one. We'll slash off that one since we were a little bit on opposite sides of things, and since we were on the same side of things on this Raiders one, we'll flip the Ravens out. Put the Raiders in. Well, that's fun to say. Ravens out, Raiders in.
I know why you're doing this.
Out, Raiders in on this one. So our 5 will be the Detroit Lions getting 3 versus the Chicago Bears. The Carolina Panthers getting +4.5 versus the Dallas Cowboys. We have the San Francisco 49ers, Seattle Seahawks 51.5 under. We had the New England Patriots +7, and we had the Las Vegas Raiders +3. So those are our 5 mutuals we got going on. And now we'll get into our 5 best picks of the week. I can't speak today. What are your picks for this week? How many do you got for us?
Hey, listen, that still sounds a lot better than Russell Westbrook. So I'm not going to hold it against you. And I know why you took the Ravens game off. You just don't want to get screamed at if it goes the other way. But let's see. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I've got 10 picks.
Oh, yeah, he's throwing out the big money this week. I got 6 picks this week. So I'm on the lower end. You're on the bigger end. Since you got 10 and I got 6, why don't you lead us off? What's your first pick for the week?
Okay. For my first pick of the week, I'm actually going to go with the Browns at -1.5.
All right. Browns -1.5. For my first pick of the week, I'm going Detroit Lions +3 versus the Chicago Bears. Also, with that, I'm going 42 points. I'm going under on that for the game. So I have Detroit Lions +3, Lions Bears 42 under on that for that game. So nothing like having a Lions Bears game with a lot of money riding on it.
Now, since you mentioned it, that's actually one of my picks also. I'm taking Detroit at +3, but I'm also going to roll with the Colts here at +2.
All right, Indianapolis Colts +2. This one also was one of our mutuals. I'm going Carolina Panthers +4.5 for me.
Okay, and since you mentioned that one, I also have the Carolina Panthers at +4.5, and I'm also going to take Atlanta +1.5.
Oh, he's riding the Falcons. He's off the Giants bandwagon onto the Dirty Birds.
Can't get any worse.
Yeah, you put that game on your TV one. I'll have Bears Lions on mine. All right, next up for me, I'm going San Francisco first half -1.5. They've played pretty good first halves, have not played second halves. So I'm going to continue to ride that wave, and maybe I get in a little in-game action if they can cover that and hit up the Seahawks in the second half of that game. So I'm going San Francisco 49ers first half -1.5 for me. What do you got up next?
For my next one, I am taking the under at 47.5 in the Atlanta and Washington game.
Oh, my goodness. Who puts that much money on that type of football game?
Oh, man, it's going to be exciting.
All right, next up from me, also one of our mutuals, I have the New England Patriots +7 points in the big matchup versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If I win that one, I will be playing Adele on our next show.
Just make sure you keep it to a limited window here because we don't want any copyright infringements. For my next game, I am taking the under in the Carolina-Dallas matchup at 51.5.
All right. I'm out of all my picks. So what do you got left?
Let's see. I've got the under in the Seattle-San Francisco game at 51.5. I've got the Raiders +3 and the Bucks -7.
All right. Those are our picks for the week. Be sure to like and subscribe and don't miss any of our shows. We just dropped our college football show preview of the weekend with our best games of the week and our best bets. You can follow us on greenlightnetwork.org. Like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our content. Winning Daily will be back this weekend so you can get all our live picks up to date and on time. Where can we find you, Achilles?
As always, you can find me on Twitter at TDAchilles.
All right. That's our show, and we're out.